Welcome back. Today we're going to take a quick look at the TRN STM. I bought this one back on 11/11 when the TRN official store had a special sale on it. It was about $10. If you look today on AliExpress, it's about $16.72, which is pretty reasonable compared to it's usually about $22, I think, at full price. So you're looking at about $6 off, and it actually puts you in that ST1 price range, which I think is about $15. So pretty affordable and sounds quite nice. So let's kind of get into it. So this is what the TRN STM looks like up close. It's got the translucent plastic shell, metal backplate with a kind of a fancy screw on the back. I'm not sure where the vent hole is. It's probably over there somewhere. So for those of you who aren't familiar with having a BA in the nozzle, that's what it looks like. So there's a dynamic driver kind of back here, and then there's a BA kind of sitting right here in the nozzle. So what's special about the STM is it comes with 3 tuning nozzles. So if we take a quick look, you can see that there's actually, maybe we can take a quick look if my camera focuses, but otherwise there's there we go. There's a threaded nozzle here that you can actually unscrew off, and you replace it with nozzles. They come in gold, red, and blue. And again, from the outside, they sort of look similar, just different colors. From the inside, you can almost see there's a slight difference between them, and I can't really figure out if, I think the red one, the gold looks more of a straight through, and the red one is possibly coated. Possibly there's a smaller holes. It's kind of really hard to tell what's going on there, but red are supposed to be the basier versions. Gold is more natural, and blue is for you treble folks. I didn't really play with the blue one because treble isn't really my thing, and I had no desire to make it any brighter than it already is. So let's get into it. So for those of you, I'm a TRN ST1 fan. It's a very nice, affordable, V-shaped budget hybrid. The ST1, really nice actually, but when I originally saw the STM, I'm like, oh, okay, well, they just put tuning filters on the ST1. So that is not what the STM is. And then I think when I said that in a comment somewhere, someone said, oh no, did you see the graphs? It's actually quite neutral, maybe a neutral bright. So I went back and looked at the graphs, and it's like, oh yeah, the bass response is totally flat. So not that either. If you go and read those reviews, especially the 3 or so on audio reviews, I think all of them mention that it sounds much different than the way it graphs. It graphs super flat, but it doesn't sound like that. So in reality, it's closer to a UV shape, and depending on which filter you use and which tip you use and which cable you use, you're sort of in that UV area. And I preferred it in the V shape, so I kind of pushed it in that direction. So second thing to notice about the STM is it's got this modern TRN wide soundstage, which gives you a huge wide soundstage, lots of separation, and a vocal image that's kind of close in and big, just like the VX, just like the BA8. Just like when I said the V90S should have taken the soundstage from those two, the STM exactly does that. And so super happy to see that on such an affordable model, because it really does sound great. And so depending on which filter you use, I think the red was actually wider than the gold for me, but that's just going to be colored by which kind of tips you have as well, and your cable and your source. But generally it's just going to sound very wide, not as tall, kind of deep, but very much a modern sound compared to the ST1, which was more of a closed-in, between-your-ears experience. So sound-wise, I think the gold is fuller sounding, possibly not as clean. So they did a good job of reducing the bass level from, say, the ST1 level, reduce that a bit, and clean up the bass bleed in the mids. So that happens. On the gold, I think it happens a little less, and it's more so on the red. I think the red is that cleaner, leaner sound, more of a U shape. The gold for me, more of a V shape. This is the KB ear rhyme cable. Again, just adding a little body to the low end. So I sort of pushed it in that not as clean, more bassy area. But if you use the stock cable, stock tips, it may be closer to the red sound, a cleaner, leaner, more of a U shape for you. The bass is tight, nice fast decay, not bass head levels, but way up there. If you are buying it based on that flat graph, you'll be a bit disappointed because there is plenty of bass and it's tight and it's not super fast. It's quite fast, but it comes across as tight. And for me, I actually EQ'd up the sub bass just a little bit, just to give a little more presence because it's a little bit mid bass heavy. So I EQ'd up the sub bass just a little bit, which has a seesaw effect where your mids and upper mids drop a little bit. So do play with that just move it a tiny bit because it affects both of them and you don't want to go too far. But just to give a little more rumble behind that tight mid bass punch sounds great. And so in generally, drums sound really good. So I think I called out 9 Inch Nails, Dead Souls. Has some great drums right in the beginning. But if you're the type who is really attracted towards that, hearing both the strike of the drum and that satisfying thump afterwards, the STM is sort of in your ballpark because this overriding brightness across the whole signature just gives you that nice sharp strike, and then the bass, nice thump, and it's tight so it doesn't really bleed anywhere. Quite nice. But for bass heads who really like a lot of that, not so much. But you can pretty much pick any drum heavy song and it's going to sound really good. The mids, you're either going to be cleaner or leaner on the red is what I would call that, and it's really nice either way. But I think if you're going to call it lean, it's probably going to be on the red side. At least that's what it was for me on the gold. With this cable, with these tips, it ends up just being a little fuller, but there's enough bass bleed into the mids where I didn't really think it was lean at all. But that one's going to be kind of your results are going to vary from mine depending on what tips you use and which filter you use, and that's why out of 5 reviews, you're going to see 5 different versions of what the mids are and the upper mids. But for me, tilting everything towards a bassier sound, it sounds really nice. And vocals are still forward, but they are shifted a little bit because of this overriding brightness. So even male vocals will sound a little bit brighter, a little higher than they should be, just a little bit, enough to be noticeable. And I think for acoustic instruments, it's shifted kind of the same way. So if you're very much into accuracy and a very natural sound, not so much the STM for you. It's more of a musical, fun sound, and so do be aware of that. Another song called Lady Hawk by Let It Roll. Very much nice drums. Her vocals kind of sit at the top, and then sometimes they kind of go off to the side with this wide soundstage. Drums were left in the middle. There's a nice thick bass right underneath, and the whole thing layers up really well in the midsection. Really, really nice, and it's got plenty of bass to make it a fun driving sound, not the lean sound that you kind of think about what you were going to get. But no, with this cable and the tips and everything just works, and it works really well. So the treble, it's still BA colored. Like I said, that the vocals are shifted a bit, the treble is going to be shifted a bit. It sounds like BA treble. I don't know. It didn't necessarily bother me as much as the level of it and the detail and that sharpness, what that adds to the rest of the signature. There's more of a benefit than a problem saying that the cymbals are too metallic. I wouldn't put it in that category. But again, it's a BA. So if you're really sensitive to it, if you're sensitive to a BA in the nozzle, think twice about it. But for me, it was really about this V-shaped balance between the treble level and having it ascend and soar and being matched by a very strong bass punch, have some rumble if you have to EQ it a bit. And if you want to hear just kind of a sample EDM typical drop, Armin van Buuren's Wild Wild Sun jumped to about 140. And so the vocals will sort of trail off and he'll hang on to this note for a long time as it falls. And then you'll just get hit with this bright synth. The drum starts pounding and you're like, oh, all is good here. And it just sounds really good on the STM. Even if you're bass head, it gets up there. It's pretty close. It's not, I wouldn't say it's 100% my favorite. It's not ZSX level, but it's up there enough to have a good time and to evoke some emotion in that soaring and ascendancy. So yeah, it works for me. So again, that was a quick look at the TRN STM. We're kind of here at the end of the year, holiday time. Please do have happy holidays. Spend some time with your family and friends. Take a break from the internet. Do what you have to do to get a little recharge for the year next year. And thank you guys again for tuning in all year. And maybe I'll fit one in by the end of the year. I've got another cable coming in. Hopefully that will actually show up and not be delayed like in shipping as my other cables. Otherwise, I will see you in the next year. So again, thank you guys for watching and see you soon.